Welcome to Iris After Hours.
Casual conversations with inspirational speakers off the clock.
Hi guys, welcome back to Iris After Hours. Now today we have an amazing podcast for you guys. We have epic, incredible. We have two of God's generals here in our studio. They are first and foremost ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ and amazing at sharing the gospel, which is like my favourite thing and their favourite thing, so we're on the same page. They are my spiritual parents and Christy's real parents. No other than Heidi and Rolland Baker. Heidi and Rolland, thank you.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to your podcast.
Thank you.
And being part of your podcast.
I can't wait to hear what I have to say.
Come on, Rolland.
I know, same. Happy 36 years.
Oh gosh, yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yeah, we are experienced.
36 years.
We know all about it.
It's a miracle.
Isn't it though? It's my anniversary today. And it's
Chrissy,
a really popular week to get married.
How many years? 8 and 36.
8, and Shara's getting married on Saturday. So there you go.
Everybody's doing it.
It's a good thing to do. We recommend it. Huh, honey?
In a pinch.
Do you recommend going to the mission field at 20 and 32 with no money and
a week after you get married?
Is that the secret to success? To marital bliss?
I told you and Brock, and I told Shara and Danny, I highly recommend a honeymoon. I think a honeymoon is a good plan. We had 3 days.
If only we had money
Not
for
really.
a honeymoon.
We didn't really. We kind of. What happened? Tell them what happened.
What happened?
We didn't have any plans for a honeymoon or money for it at all the day before the wedding.
No, nothing.
Oh
It was the night before the wedding when our friend Mel Torrey came up with an idea that he wanted to put us in the Queen Mary at Long Beach, and then go to Catalina Island. But we didn't know that until late the night before.
And then when we arrived in Catalina, and we'd only gone out to lunch once and talked, so we didn't really know each other very well. And
hang on. Let's go back to the very beginning.
I knew
it's
that
a very good place to
start.
Yes. So we need to go back.
Yeah. So I was taking this
prior
team out
to the Baker deal. You were a missionary.
Yeah. Oh,
come on, Heidi.
I was totally a missionary. I started speaking at 16.
This is a collision of two missionaries already solid and committed. This wasn't like, will you marry me because I'm going to go to the mission field? Yeah, I want to be a missionary too.
I was full on out there.
Come on.
And so I was going to Hawaii.
And what was your maiden name?
Farrell.
So Heidi Farrell was like missionary before the Baker
Oh,
thing.
yeah. I was taking teams all over the world during university. Yeah.
Come on.
So I met Rolland. I said, I'm going to Africa, Asia, and England. I'm going to be a minister and a missionary. And Rolland said, that sounds okay. That sounds good.
What did you actually say?
He said that.
Guy in college, Vanguard University, was interested in Heidi until they heard her calling.
Are you telling me she was very attractive, Rolland?
She was very attractive, yeah.
She still is so attractive.
And look at her. How can you help?
Are you still in love, Rolland?
No, they were all interested until they heard her calling, and she wasn't about to budge. She was set. She didn't look to the left or the right. This is what she's going to do. So take it or leave it.
Wow.
Most of them left it.
So it was a beauty, but it was with like full-on gospel calling. Can you handle it? If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Well, one of them prophesied my immediate death so he could marry her.
Please explain that one.
Yes,
that was bad.
Tell us, Rolland.
Well,
as in he comes up to you and he says, I have this word for you. You're going to die.
No, I heard it through Heidi.
Oh, what happened?
yeah, there were a couple. But I was engaged. I was engaged to this other guy. And
you were engaged.
He said he
my
was
friend,
gonna,
he was my good friend.
Yeah, and that was the problema because we were all good friends.
Mates. Oh
yes, we were all mates.
So he was an Australian mate.
Jeff,
We were
my
mates.
good friend Jeff, yeah.
I found this awkward.
He said his name.
I've made it
anyway.
to this
It's all out
age.
now. This is why it's after hours. It's all out.
I never knew
On
you
the
were
table.
friends. I thought you didn't know this guy.
We were good friends.
Let me explain this.
Christy's learning stuff. This is amazing.
No, see, I was going to a big, huge church in Costa Mesa.
Okay.
25,000 people going through there every week.
Oh my
1,500 people in college and career class.
Wow.
But it was mostly about parties and going to concerts and fun and all. And I wanted God. I wanted the Holy Spirit. I didn't. And I finally got tired of social life completely.
Wow.
Hence, no dating.
So
That's
I wasn't into cars and discos and how much you could do and still be saved and all that.
Yeah.
So I said,
Neither
I
was
give up
I.
on all social life. I'm going to find some place where the Holy Spirit was really working. So I found this little church of 200 people, Dana Point Community Chapel, and I went down there. And sure enough, the Holy Spirit was super strong.
Is that where Mel Tari was?
That's where Mel Tari was.
Yeah.
We came there about the same time.
Gosh.
And I noticed this super sharp couple in there, Heidi and Jeff. And they were so sharp. I mean, they dressed sharp. They looked sharp. They were just sharp. And she had these amazing testimonies of her mission trips, of how God would provide, and it was just spectacular.
I was prophesying all the time.
Yeah, and she was prophesying, calling out cancer healings.
What year is this?
1979.
So that's pretty radical for a woman.
I was
to be up the front
I was a
prophesying.
young teenager. Yeah.
She was
just
18, 19 when I
prophesying.
first met her in church, and I thought that was the perfect couple. I was dating somebody else at the time. And I really liked Jeff. He became a good friend of mine. And
Jeff's the
Well,
best.
I
right?
didn't
She had
know
good
Heidi.
sense to
I
go
didn't
out with a woman that was so called in missions like Heidi.
I didn't know Heidi at all. He was my friend. But then I heard, I could see how obedient and dedicated she was. One summer, when everybody else was just planning on going to the beach and having fun all summer, she was called to New York City to go to the back streets off Broadway and all of that. And I still remember in the parking lot, she was crying because it was hard for her to leave Laguna and leave the beach and leave her friends and the church to go to New York all
Laguna
by
in
herself.
summer is unbelievable.
But she was obedient.
Yeah.
And that's what struck me about her. She was just so obedient, even if it hurt, even if she cried, even no matter how painful it was, she did it, and she left. And that impressed me. I still didn't know her at all, but that really, really impressed me. And then later, because Jeff was not called to be a missionary, eventually
That became
Heidi
clear.
got free of her engagement to him. And I still remember her crying over that and saying it felt like her right arm being cut off, but she was still obedient.
Wow.
And I was really impressed by then. But I had to counsel Jeff.
Yeah.
With no idea. Hey, it was pure. You had pure motives,
it's
didn't you?
totally
You
pure.
had no
I
idea
didn't know
that
Heidi
anything-
at all, but I told Jeff, don't worry about these women's livers. They're just so strong-headed and all. Just let them go. It's okay. It's going to. You got to find somebody who's going to
Let 'em
work with you.
Go.
Let him go.
calling.
Well, I was in Mexico City.
What were you doing in Mexico City, Heidi?
Missions. All I did was missions.
gosh.
Well, my
How old-
parents had a big ranch in Mexico, like a 700-acre ranch that they had with a few other of their friends, and it was a beautiful ranch. Crystalyn loved it there. We used to get to go there. And so I was there, and then we went to Mexico City, and I was in this little tiny chapel worshiping the Lord. And he spoke to me, said 7 things to me, and one of them was Mary Rolland Baker. And
No.
I didn't know
direct
him.
word.
God
I-
got that right.
Yeah, he had to tell me the last name. He
And
said
she
Mary
didn't
Rolland
know
Baker.
his name, so
I-
goes the story.
I
The last
knew
name?
I
The
knew
last
his
name.
name, but I
The
didn't
last
know it was Baker. I knew it was Rolland, and
Something.
But
we
did
had
you know
met-
it was this same guy?
I knew it was him,
Yeah.
and
So
I
you
was
saw,
kind of.
So when you
I
saw the
went,
name, you saw the face.
No, I just heard Mary Rolland Baker,
Oh.
and we had never gone out
And you
or
didn't
anything.
have no idea who this man was.
I knew him.
No,
No,
they
I
were
knew.
friends.
Okay.
I knew
Ish.
him because we went on a ski trip with my ex-fiance.
No, I have
So-
to explain this.
Okay.
We went on this ski trip
This is why we
Yeah,
interviewed.
what happened on the
to
ski trip?
Mammoth
Tell these stories
Mountain.
together.
The infamous ski trip.
We rode
Yeah.
up to Mammoth Mountain in the church van, and we got to share our testimonies and talk a lot.
So you were allowed to have fun
And
as
I
Christians back
realized
then.
she had a
We
testimony.
had a lot of fun. We had a
Come on.
blast.
We had a-
It was a lot of fun.
We had so much fun
But
skiing. It was
on
my
the trip,
favorite.
we like to ski the cornice at Mammoth, really steep.
Black
and
diamonds.
on one run, she fell and she hurt her thumb.
Yeah.
She twisted her thumb. So I thought that's perfect. That gives me an excuse to go to Vanguard university and check on her thumb, see if her thumb is okay.
That's what he did.
That's exactly what I did.
And that was after God told me to marry him.
And to this day, when she writes, she has to keep her thumb up. She can't
Yeah.
hold her thumb normally. So this is why we're married and have
Oh,
Iris
the
Ministries
thumb.
right
Okay,
here.
get a good shot of that, guys. Hold it up. Get a good shot of the thumb.
That-
This is
There
amazing.
you go. That's
That
you
thumb
did
was my
crazy
ticket
things.
to
Yep.
the mission field right here.
Come
We
on.
went out to lunch once. High five. I got it.
Now what we did do is pray and talk about God.
Come on. At
We did-
Vanguard.
I had 30 units of school. 30
Well,
units
so you
in
were
one
busy. You were
semester.
crazy busy.
She was busy.
I was crazy busy.
She wants to get to the mission field so badly. She's so fervent about it. She wants to do 2 years of college in one so she can get to the mission field faster.
That is
And
awesome.
she may have quit altogether if my mother hadn't convinced her to get the degree and
My
finish.
mother,
So,
too.
yeah, both of them. You
So
know,
the mothers.
So she takes
Mothers.
30 units.
Remember
I get to
that.
see her on Wednesday afternoons at 3 or so. And every chance we get, I would come over and we would talk about God and pray instead of go out to dinner and the things couples do.
So you never had a date
This
before
is
No,
why
praying?
you
no,
can go on.
no
So you had
dates.
prayer dates before.
No dates.
So the dates didn't come because you were so fervent in the spirit.
We met in
Yeah.
her office at school,
Wow.
and I came to her house, and we would sit and we would just pray and talk about God.
And I
what
would
would
give
you-
him herbal tea, which turns out he hates. But
But he would
because
drink
he
it.
loved me,
It's
he would
okay,
drink
but
it.
for
Oh,
her,
that is love.
He
So, but
drank
listen,
it.
Heidi, I've got a question for you. In this time, God's told you, marry Rolland Baker.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, and this guy's, Rolland Baker's coming over. Do you say anything? What are you thinking? Are you going, oh my God? Do
I
do
was
this or
kind
not?
of scared. I thought, he's 12 years older.
no, she came back from this trip
He's
from
a little
Mexico.
serious.
Yeah.
He's
And,
now
I,
he's got
and I had
it.
written her some letters, and I didn't know how she felt. I didn't even know if she wanted to be friendly. I didn't know anything.
But
So she calls me up when she gets back, and we meet, and she has a
She
piece
calls
of...
you. What did you?
I
Who called who?
called because God told me I was marrying Rolland
what did
Baker.
you do when
She's
you got
from
this phone call?
Mexico
Can you
City.
remember-
She
can you remember the
stopped
phone
at
call?
Las Barracas in Mexico on the ranch, and she found a piece of driftwood. She brought me back a piece of driftwood about this big, and she glued little shells on it.
With his name.
Rolland. She put Rolland on it. Just glued all these little shells,
Yeah.
and so that's all I needed to know.
Oh my God.
Yep.
So you got that gift.
He
Yeah.
did.
So the phone, when you got the phone call,
He
you were
was
like,
really sweet. Yep. So
did you
here
know that,
you
Christy?
are.
Did you know this little detail about the driftwood with the name?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, what else do you do when you know you're going to marry someone, I guess?
You drew.
Like, I don't know
I
him,
put his
but-
name on the driftwood.
Did you do that with Brock? Did you do something creative with
No,
Brock?
no, I wasn't that crafty.
So she was at least friendly. You don't do driftwood like that for no reasons.
Yeah.
There, I was
No.
super.
So you,
Yeah.
so you're feeling something going on, right?
Something's going on, yeah.
But back to the honeymoon.
But
we
nothing
sat,
was said. No, hang on. We've got to get this sorted out. So nothing was said. When was something said? So there was all this like.
Oh, one day I was in MAPS where I was leading
What's
the
MAPS?
ministries. It's
Explain.
the ministry program. I was
At
a
Vanguard.
woman leading that, which was big deal because they'd
79.
never had a woman. Yeah. And I was leading that thing and praying in my office. I had a ministry office, and the Lord said, tonight Rolland's going to ask you to marry him. Well, we had one Chinese lunch. That's it. And we hadn't gone to Benihana's. That wasn't really...
This Chinese lunch was in Hawaii, though.
No. We
That's
had
just-
one Chinese lunch.
That was later.
Later, yes, sometime. Anyway, God said, I can't remember.
At a lunch
All I
somewhere.
know is God said tonight he's going to ask you to marry him.
Oh my goodness.
And he did.
It was 10
he
o'clock
did.
at night. We were
And we were
walking
in-
around the campus at Southern California College, Vanguard.
Right outside my office.
Right outside our office, just walking around, and it got to be 10 o'clock at night. And
Did you have a ring?
No
No.
ring. We believed you should be very poor and have nothing.
we were less than poor.
My parents had money, but Rolland didn't have any, and my parents kind of cut me off when I became a Christian. So,
And obviously,
except
having
they
money
did
wasn't
pay.
important to you.
They
at the
did
time.
pay for university. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah,
Vanguard.
yeah. They paid for all my BA master's degree. Yeah, they believed in that, but they didn't believe in helping with ministry stuff. And I thought if you had anything, it was evil. So
Yeah.
no ring.
Well, I remember her saying,
I'm glad you have a ring.
when I asked her,
What
she
wrong?
says,
Tell me.
I've been nervous all day. I've been waiting all day for this, and I was getting nervous about 10 o'clock at night.
This is you, Rolland, getting nervous?
No, she
No.
was.
Oh, she was.
Well, because
She knew.
I had to have
He had no
confirmations.
secrets, apparently. You knew everything before it happened.
She knew I was going to ask her, but it was getting late.
I mean, you are a friend of God.
I definitely heard God.
Heidi, you are a friend of God.
I had to hear God.
Doubt.
I had to hear God. It's good to hear God. 36 years later,
there's no doubt you're in the center of His will. Then, is there? You're like bang on, center of His will.
Africa, Asia, and England.
Will, not permissible will, not all these other wills. The perfect will.
God picked him for me. God picked him.
So how did you
Look
ask?
at our fruit.
I know. Come on.
Yeah.
And a granddaughter.
And a granddaughter and an amazing son.
Well, there's two attitudes toward all of this. One is that it doesn't matter. Just pick somebody good and God will bless you. And the other is He'll pick somebody.
And he picked.
And people have argued ever since in the church which one is the best way to go. So
He picked you.
So you think there's one person meant for one other person?
I don't know what it's meant means, but God can certainly take control.
That's your story.
If He wants.
Come on. And He did with you guys.
He picked us. I mean, maybe everybody has a different journey, but maybe for us, because of the radicalness of our call.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly.
What we do and, how intense it's been.
But not just the radicalness of your call, Heidi. It was the response to your call.
The obedience.
Because you were both so committed.
Yeah.
That you were set up. You set yourselves up by your obedience to God and your passion for Him and His gospel and for seeing the world saved.
Yeah.
That you set yourselves up.
It wasn't like there was any
for
choice.
Him to talk. To Him to guide you. Maybe that wouldn't happen to someone who was just really, like you said before, was like, how far can I go without sinning,
Right. I was living like this. I still am. Just God possessed me.
And so
Holy Spirit possessed me.
Your antennas were like fully up, both of you, and your hearts were fully engaged with Him, fully in the right place. So
there was actually no choice. I had never met anybody at all who could live that kind of life of faith on the mission field. And that's the only basis on which I would go to the mission field.
That is crazy.
And I never knew anybody. I never heard any testimonies like that. It was just so obvious.
This was the first person that you met that was actually
There was the first person I'd met that I would even think of living a life of faith with. So.
That is.
And he's the first guy. I think I had 5 people propose in 1 week. Yeah, I had 5 proposals in a week after I broke up with my ex-fiance. 5 or 6. Can't remember.
Who can remember? It's more than a couple.
It's because I was called to missions and everything. Mm-hmm. And once I broke up with them, they had just all said, yeah, that's because you're going to marry me, you're going to marry me, you're going to marry me. But Rolland was the first guy that ever said, when I said I'm going to Africa, Asia, and England to be a minister and a missionary, he was the first guy that ever said, that just sounds awesome. That just sounds amazing. I could totally do that.
But there's more to the story.
Come on, Roland. Fill us in. Fill us in.
No, our families are entangled, and it wasn't our doing.
Yes, that's right.
The first person that really acquainted Heidi with the mission field and what it was like was her 6th grade teacher in public school in San Juan Capistrano.
And
that was my mother.
That is crazy. Just stop right there. That is the craziest fact of this whole story.
And later, even before I seriously thought about Heidi personally, my mother would say things, Rolland, I wish you would marry somebody like Heidi. I think, yeah.
So
I didn't know that either.
So she knew you as an adult as well, not just as a primary school kid?
No, she didn't. Mm-hmm. She only knew me as a primary school kid.
Yeah.
So.
But she remembered your heart.
Yeah.
And
I was radical back then.
I
wasn't. Crystalyn, did you know this?
It does, but it's not. See, the thing is, in 6th grade, I was taken to the church, the Episcopal Church. I never knew Anglican, and I never knew God in a personal way, but everything I heard about God, I loved. And when I went to 6th grade, there was this teacher that showed slides of the poor in Hong Kong. And I just said, God, to a God that I didn't know in a personal way, I said, God, I want to do something to help those people. And she showed the poor in Hong Kong, and she talked about China.
This is a public school.
This is public school.
Wow.
And her name was Mrs. Baker. 6th grade. And
This is the craziest setup. This is the craziest setup.
She taught us to count to 1 to 10. I still remembered it.
Do it.
Well, in Mandarin, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And
The last one's good. Do
there
the last one
it
again.
is.
Sure.
And I
like the short.
I learned Cantonese later, but this lady touched my heart in a powerful way. And I said, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to do something with my life to make a difference for the poor of the earth. And I had to wait till I was 16 till I heard about a message, how to be born again. And I said to God, once I became born again, because this Mrs. Baker told us about Jesus in a public school. She did. She had just come back from the mission field. They only came back for a couple years to America. And she came back and she talked about Jesus. And she talked about the poor. And she talked about Hong Kong and China. And it was just, she really touched my life. Out of all the teachers I've ever had, she most impacted my life. Well, when I met Rolland, and then God said I would marry Rolland Baker, he said, you should meet my mother.
Well, see, she didn't know when we got engaged
That was your mum.
that was my mother.
No, I didn't
And my
know
mother
that.
didn't know that this girl I was getting engaged to was Heidi.
Oh my
So I brought my mother to church to introduce her to Heidi, and Heidi came along to meet my mother, and they
Gosh.
looked at each other.
I wish I had a camera on that moment right
And
there.
my mother goes, Heidi? And Heidi goes, Mrs. Baker?
What did you think, Rolland? You must have freaked.
I said, well, it's a done deal. We're done.
Yeah.
We're fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was my 6th grade
Confirmation
teacher.
number 1. Oh my God.
Wow.
6th grade school teacher. And then they went back to China. They went straight back to Hong Kong. They weren't even at the wedding because they were already back in Hong Kong.
On the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were
They
our first
stayed
stop.
for many, many more years. Yeah.
So your parents were probably
Missionaries.
right on board.
Oh, yeah.
Your parents.
My parents,
Okay,
Ivy
let's talk about
League,
this story.
bohemian, upper middle class, private beach,
Educated.
very, very. Rolland's parents were very educated too, but my parents were, Stanford,
A little wealthier.
yeah, a lot
A
more.
lot
In the
wealthier.
natural.
Yeah, in the natural. And
He's 12 years older.
he's 12 years older.
Doesn't have
he's
money.
poor.
Wants to go with you to
Educated. Very intelligent.
The
He is
mission field.
intelligent, educated, but not enough in their book. And they were not happy campers.
Yeah, and you couldn't really share that God had told you because they didn't have a grid for God.
They
did
didn't have
What
a
was their
grid for God. They had the grid for God was, my
Americans
dad,
are Christians.
all Americans are Christians. My dad's like, we're Jewish, but we became Catholic, but we're not anything. We're agnostic. And my mother said, well, we're Jewish, but we became Episcopalian. So
right.
it was just, but they were just not in for it. They weren't born again. My dad didn't go to church at all. He, on a good day, he was agnostic. Usually he was an atheist, but he was full of love. He was full of love.
he was a great father, wasn't he?
He was super loving. But I want to skip ahead and tell you, I led my dad to Jesus.
Come on.
When he was in the hospital with a heart problem. And he just said, honey, all those planes wait for you. All those planes wait for you. I can't believe all those planes wait for you. Better late than never. I'm going to follow you anywhere. And he was ordained at the age of 72. My mother one day was full of demons. She was angry because some people had stolen like $1 million or something from them. And she was upset about it. A lot of money.
They lost their money.
Well, they kind of swindled them, and she was upset. And I said, those are demons. You need to forgive people, and I can get rid of them. And she said, really? And she ran downstairs, and I just cast the demons out of her, and she got powerfully born again. Wow. She got filled with Holy Spirit. She became, after my
You were
dad.
happy about that, Rolland, weren't you?
Oh, he was so happy.
No more dealing with those demons.
And
Rolland.
they both came to Mozambique before they
your
went.
dad did- I didn't
My
realize your dad
dad came to Mozambique. He loved it. I took him straight to the garbage dump. I remember the day
Down in Maputo.
I took my dad and mom to the garbage dump. So from Laguna Beach, private beach, They flew straight into Maputo via Johannesburg, and I picked him up after that 2-day flight, and I drove him straight to the dump because I just wasn't thinking. And
then you left him there to go off and pray for somebody. I left him there
because I went to pray for this crippled guy who was paralyzed from the waist down. And they said it was really close, but it wasn't close. It took like almost an hour and a half one way.
And she sends me to go off and get the video camera to catch all this. And by the time I get back, he's already healed and running around the house.
He's running. I walked 7 times, paralyzed from the waist down. He was completely healed. So when I got back to my dad, he just looked at me and he said, "Don't leave me here. Don't leave me here." And then after one night, I checked him into the 5-star. I just okay.
Yeah, they've come all that way.
They've come all that way.
They were probably happy about Dad at that point.
They loved Dad.
They thought that Rolland hadn't led you astray.
Yeah.
Fast forward.
Totally loved Dad.
Fast forward.
I got along much better with her dad. Yeah, he was really great to talk with. But her mother, she just thought I was way too narrow about Jesus, and she fussed with me all the time.
Until she got super born
so
again.
All the way, she comes to Mozambique again, and for 6 months to be an English teacher.
Because my dad was in heaven already.
Right. So this is good advice for everyone listening.
Okay, all right. Now, I'm still
great.
wondering about my mother-in-law. It's been a rough road for a long, long time, So just before she leaves, after 6 months in Pemba with us, we have a meeting that I'm speaking at, and she's sitting on the front row, and everybody else is Mozambican. And I'm speaking away. I don't even remember what I talked about, but she really got
You
moved.
were wearing a Congo shirt of 7 colors.
But I did notice that during this whole meeting, her head was in her hands. She was down here, and she was just in her hands. And I didn't know what that was all about.
Right.
But I just kept preaching. I just ignored her. I just went for it. At the end of it, she comes racing up to me, throws her arms around me, and says, "What a wonderful man of God." And it turns out that the whole time I was speaking, with her head in her hands, she was having a vision of Jesus.
And she said she thought her mind was being taken out of the service because she was, in her mind, she was preparing this beautiful meal because she's a fantastic cook. She was. She's in heaven now too, but she was making this beautiful food. And then she felt like she was supposed to make it for Rolland and for me and for our family in Mozambique. And then she had a vision of Jesus. And she totally fell in love with Rolland when she saw Jesus. And she had never, ever had a vision of Jesus before or since.
Way to go,
and
Rolland.
since that day, she loved Rolland and loved him till the day she died.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a really powerful
So if anyone
thing.
has trouble, mother-in-law troubles, that's...
Just
Actually, my mom.
Get in a speaking engagement, get some preacher, and get in to sit in the front row.
and food.
And think about food, and then try and just ask for a vision of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom had a vision of my husband's heart before
That's
we
why.
got married,
Yep.
Oh.
and that helped a lot.
Tell us.
Yeah,
Wow.
because
Because he was like, I don't know how I'm going to convince her.
Because
There's no
when-
possible
Oh, because you're
way.
convinced.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was
she
not
was like, who's this
convinced
guy?
because he was so little
Same
and skinny.
story.
He was so tiny and so little and so skinny. He was skinny.
Okay.
I said, there's
enough
no,
on the skinny.
No, but there's no
Did
way.
you literally say skinny
no way in the
5
natural
times?
way.
Yes,
In the
because
natural, there was no way.
he was 17 and he was tiny, and I thought there's no way he could protect her on the mission field, and so he hadn't grown yet, he hadn't grown up yet.
Okay.
So I went to God, but I'll tell you this story. It's a powerful story. God, this is a mother-in-law story.
Yes, come on.
Because,
we're on mother-in-laws.
wow.
This
Yeah.
is important in
He-
marriage and how marriages work.
I mean,
To get
Brock is
mother-in-law on
tall
side is
and strong and
paramount.
powerful and the perfect man for Crystalyn.
on.
The perfect man.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
at the time, he just looked little to me. And I said, the guy can't protect her.
Like King David.
I like King David. So I went to this big church and I was preaching and I was worried about it. Brock liking her so much because I thought she's going to marry a big strapping missionary dude. And he's going to be able to protect her in Congo and India and, and the Lord just knocked me out in the spirit. Bam, I was out flat praying for these people and I saw the Lord and I saw Brock. I saw Brock with this huge heart, like shoulder to shoulder, massive, big huge heart, and it was beating in rhythm to the heartbeat of God. And the Lord said, Brock has my heart. Brock has my heart. And I just started bawling. And Brock, before Brock asked for her hand from Rolland and I, he's a 2000 and something kind of dude. He wanted to ask both of us. That was cool. So before he even did that, I called him and I said, you can marry our daughter. I saw your heart. It's huge. You have the best heart ever. And Brock now, he's tall and he's filled out. But that's not the point. That's not the point. I would have loved him if he was a tiny stick forever, because he has God's heart. So, if you're a guy wanting to get married, and you need your mother-in-law and your father-in-law, you should start praying. Pray. They see your heart.
Get knocked out.
Yeah, because it's all about the heart. And that's what happened with my mom. She saw Rolland's heart. We'd been married for 20-some years.
So the journey was
and she had never seen Rolland's heart. But once she saw his heart, she was sold over. Once I saw Brock's heart, I was sold over. I love that man. Is awesome.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So guys,
it's all about the heart.
When God set you up, told you who you were going to marry.
Yeah.
You're 20. He's 32. Is it smooth sailing from then on?
Oh,
in terms of marriage, because God set you up.
Yeah. So you've probably never had a fight or a disagreement.
Oh.
Am I right in saying that? Am I being ignorant?
Are there some challenges?
What makes you...
Crystalyn, you
I
would
don't
never
know.
have seen any challenges in your parents'
What makes us what we are in God? What really shapes us and makes us who we are? It's not just the blessings. It's not just the agreements. It's not just the easy stuff. What shapes us is the hard stuff.
Yeah.
That's what shapes us and makes us who we are. And we're the fruit of all we've been through, all the challenges and differences and problems and issues and everything, and that's why we are today. I think without those, I don't know where we'd be or what we'd be doing, but it's those things that make us who we are today. Able to serve God.
Love wins. We want to say to people, you're like two different generations in a sense, so are we. So he's one above me, you're one above her.
Yeah, I'm half of one above you.
Well, anyway, depends how you look at the generations, right?
Yeah.
So the gaps are about the same, and I'm just looking at that and saying love wins. It's covenant and love, and you love through the hard times, and you love through the really hard times, and you love through
the
really hard times. Yeah, because love wins, and covenant is a powerful thing. And if we didn't believe in covenant, we would have given up. What do
you mean by covenant, Heidi?
Covenant in marriage. When you say I do, and you say I do till death do us part, you need to mean that in your heart. You don't just give up
a serious
and say,
agreement.
I'm not feeling it. There are times we really feel it and times we really don't feel it.
Yeah.
But love wins at all times. We just celebrated 36 years of marriage. And I think I could have never done what I've done without this man. No. We could have never done what we do.
Vice versa.
We are meant to be together through thick and thin, through the most bizarrely challenging times on the planet.
What were some of the biggest challenges?
Well, I have to say that I think our experience right from the beginning was very different from the usual, because it required a huge amount of faith just to survive each day.
Yeah,
that's what separated it. It wasn't like we just had money for a honeymoon and we could just sail off and have a nice time for a few weeks or a month. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, we didn't even have, like I said, plans for a honeymoon the next day.
The center of God's will for you right from the get-go was crazy difficulty and crazy challenge.
Total day-to-day faith.
It's a survival challenge.
So we're off to...
the TV show Survivor is nothing on what you possibly went through.
Right.
We have nothing.
Yeah. We had to stay with other people in one room for months at a time.
In Indonesia?
Honeymoon. We go to Catalina Island.
Sat on the street corner.
It's what, Labor Day weekend?
Yeah,
Was it?
sat on the street corner.
And we sit on the pier at Avalon on Catalina Island. And the room we had reserved, for some reason, got taken.
No.
It wasn't really reserved, I think. Our friend just didn't quite remember to reserve it.
Well,
so we didn't have any
But it's
room.
the holiday weekend, and there's nothing open. We're sitting there on the ferry pier, sitting on our suitcase on our honeymoon with...
Date number 2.
And my friend is paying for it.
Date number 2. I love it.
Yeah.
We're just sitting there like we did many times for years afterwards, just sitting there.
A sign of things to come.
What to do next? And so there's a board up there with a list of all these hotels, and
We
they're all
called
full.
like 16 of them,
So we
I
keep
think.
calling one, and finally one says, "Oh, there's some guy unexpectedly just canceled and left." So here's a room.
There was
for
a
you.
moldy little room in the back of a dive.
A stable.
Oh, it was a stable, all right.
And that was the portent of many stops and hotels, and I mean we were in hallways and closets and garages and
Seriously,
So it's
yeah.
almost like God really, right from the start, was preparing you, and I don't know whether testing your heart was the right word,
but it was never relaxing in the normal sense of the word. We never went off somewhere just to relax and enjoy. Every day was
We're learning.
heart and mouth
We're gonna
faith
do it.
test.
So this is like, I mean, I know sometimes people can come out of ministry schools or whatever with a sense of entitlement, but you obviously didn't start with a sense of entitlement.
No.
Even though you're in the center of God's will, you're fully committed to Him. It was like, you guys need to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
And to stay in the poorest, the lowest, even though you're kings and queens or princes and princesses.
Oh, sure.
And
we
you're
didn't know.
quite
We didn't
different.
know all of that king and queen
No.
thing, but but it's probably better we didn't know that at first, because we'd be asking God, what?
Where's our palace?
Where's our palace?
And your
No,
personalities are quite different. And you have no money. And you're 12 years apart.
And
And,
you
you don't know each other.
You don't
And
know
we
each
don't
other.
know
So
each
you
other.
don't know each other.
So that's
Well,
intense.
she
get to know each
tried
other.
to play tennis. She's a ballet dancer.
Oh, that was
And
a
I was
disaster.
really hoping
Tennis
for
was a disaster.
that she would be, she was athletic. She was very fit because of all her
you had that in common.
dancing.
They were both
Yeah,
fit. They were
I
both
was
fit.
a ballet dancer.
Which is the
surfer,
sixth cultivating of
biker.
Iris.
I mean,
Yeah.
she was
I'm
strong. She was
Yeah.
athletic because of all her 8 hours a day dancing. So I take her out on a tennis court, and all she can do is pirouettes, just total air balls, just doing beautiful pirouettes.
So she looked great playing tennis, even though she couldn't play.
I
She
could
looked, she
not
looked good.
hit the ball. I could not hit the ball. He was just flabbergasted. Finally, we decided he would find other tennis partners.
And did you buy him some dance shoes so he could take up ballet?
He wouldn't go for the dance.
You can't have it all.
No,
In
but
this
he did
house.
once. When we did Toy Maker and Son with
Yeah,
YWAM,
yeah,
Rolland started dancing.
Rock
You should have seen him. His
He did. He
arms.
did dance drama with her.
He did
on the
dance
streets.
drama, yeah.
We did street drama on the streets. you know.
Yeah, he did it. And yeah, God bless him. But I never did learn to play tennis.
With,
She's not into sports, She's into
I'm into different kind of sports.
she's into
Dirt
watch
bikes.
she's into watching
Dirt bikes,
skating in the Winter
skiing.
Olympics. That sort of
Skiing.
thing.
I like to ski. I like to run. I like to swim. I like to dive.
Water sports.
I like to hike.
Come on.
Yeah,
But
Are there-
competing, that's not Christian. That's
yeah. I'm not really a competitor.
are there any things that you learned later on in the journey after you've been married 20 years, 30 years? Some of the things that stick out that you learned that helped.
Always say sorry. Instead of arguing, because arguing can go round and round and round and spin and spin and spin. Argue, argue, argue. Forget it. Just forget the arguing and say sorry.
Wow, good advice.
Just say you're sorry and mean it.
in the Christian life.
Yeah, just say you're sorry.
The fact is that turning the other cheek, you can't lose. So if you just drop it, take it, turn the other cheek, forget it, don't keep a record of wrongs, in the long run you can't lose.
Yeah.
Come on.
And
So that's been a gradual process of having the strength to do that, actually.
it takes a while. And the other thing is learn each other's love languages.
Oh, yes.
Learn each other's love.
That's been very
Like that
important
book,
for me and Sarah.
The Five Love Languages, because
You'll rock that up.
we just weren't getting it right. Like he didn't know
'Cause are they
to
different? Are
get
your
me
love languages different?
Yes.
Right. So you receive and give love in a different way to Rolland.
Right.
Yeah.
And I need to know how he feels love. And for him, it's quality time.
She thinks giving presents is a love language.
No, it is a love language,
Yes.
but he doesn't feel the gifts. I mean, except for chocolate. He feels chocolate.
And for me, sitting down for an hour and discussing something in depth, that's a love
That's how he
language.
feels it. So that's what I do. I listen to him. I let him talk about things, and I take him on special times away so he can just be with me and just talk and
So she listens to me for 20 minutes and said, "Well, Rolland, I've listened to you for 20 minutes. Are we done?"
You've certainly had to share her with God and a lot of other people, haven't you, Rolland?
Hours, yeah. So
So it's good.
I've learned to go shopping.
Time. Come on.
Yeah.
But I
I've learned
like
to go shopping too. Rolland, give me a high five. Come on.
I don't need the gifts so much, but just that you
devotion.
thought he remembered me. That's important.
Yeah.
Has it been hard
So
to juggle?
it's more service for me.
Obviously, time is a bit challenging. You're incredibly busy. Has that been something you've had to learn how to balance?
You have to put it in the calendar. So I put special times down where it's just Rolland and I, and it's not just conferences, going to conferences together or doing family stuff together, but it's just where we go off and spend a couple days together. So there's about 3 of those in the calendar coming up, and it's really good.
Nice.
We have to understand as Christians that a Christian marriage is different from any other, because we have a lover that's over our spouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Higher.
And when I married her, I knew this was not going to be any kind of a typical, ordinary type marriage that people usually get counseled to have.
Yeah.
Because she's so radical. I mean, after all, when she's first filled with the Spirit, Jesus says, "I'm going to be your husband." And that's not the easiest act to follow.
God himself.
So I had to figure out right at the beginning,
he's my first love.
she doesn't belong to me.
Come on, Rolland.
She follows orders. I've already seen how obedient she is.
Yeah.
I can either accept that or not. But I'm not gonna have control of her life, and she doesn't belong to me. I had to get all that settled. Didn't make it easy.
No.
For a long time it wasn't easy, but it's gotten much, much easier as we grow.
Yeah.
But she goes off for long periods and travels and we make the most of our time by doing a lot of different things, and it's not what we would ordinarily recommend.
No.
God has to be in it.
This is a marriage of generals.
God has to be in it.
Yeah.
Or nobody could survive.
Yeah.
What have you learned?
Thank you. Good.
Where are you? What have you learned about God from each other?
Patience.
She keeps saying in public conferences, Rolland's the most patient man on the planet. So.
I learned a lot about patience.
Wow.
And she's obedient. She has such love for Jesus that she's just obedient no matter what the cost.
Wow.
That's how revivals start, by the way.
Obedience.
It's not a whole bunch of people figuring out how to do it. It's God asking certain people to do certain things, and by simple obedience, no matter what the cost, God keeps coming and revealing himself, and people.
Yeah.
It could be just ordinary people, not the big preacher, but just ordinary people, just obeying. And when we started, Heidi was totally unknown. In fact, for a long time, women were not allowed to speak at all in our movement, Pentecostal movement.
I think in most other movements.
And I would often have to say, look, if Heidi doesn't get to speak, neither of us are coming. And I would come to church and the pastor would say, Rolland, can you join us for prayer behind the platform? And Heidi, could you see how the ladies are doing in Sunday school? And I put my foot down and said, no, Heidi's part of the team here. And we come together or we don't come. So.
He always cheered me on. He always backed me up as a speaker. That was awesome. That was powerful. And maybe that was one of God's plans with choosing someone like Rolland, who was older and mature and knew who he was. He wasn't intimidated by the fact that I was called to speak.
Yeah,
that's the same as me and Sarah.
Danny Silk, Chris Valentin, they've written some books on women, and they would call me up. And other people, they asked me, how do you handle being married to a strong woman? And my simple answer was, why would I want to be married to a weak woman?
Come on.
What's the advantage there?
Come on.
Now listen, the world thinks Rolland is funny, Heidi, because he's like...
He is
comes
funny.
out with the one line. Yeah, do you think he's funny? Do you
I
really,
think he's
truly?
hilarious. I really do. I think he's super funny.
I had to ask that question.
Yeah, he makes me laugh.
Yeah, well...
Come on.
If there's no humor in heaven, I'm leaving.
Same.
Come on. Well, guys, thank you so much for starring in your podcast, and thank you for being obedient, and thank you for making a way, and being obedient, and
for having children,
Yay.
and for having so much faith to go and to go through the difficulty, because we're and Iris now is fruit of your guys' obedience and love and commitment to the Lord, and your faith and your willingness to and your love for the gospel. So thank you so much.
Love you guys.
Love you too.
I even love this lady.
Come on. Well, thank you so much, guys. That's another podcast wrap.
If you have any comments or questions that you'd like to hear us ask future guests, you can leave your comments on the comment section under our YouTube channel. And thank you for listening.
See you later.
Ciao.
This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.